Okay, my name is Jiyu Heikyo, Jonathan Riley. That's my spiritual name, and it was given to me by my teacher, Joshin Tova Green, at the San Francisco Zen Center. It means compassionate friend, calm, peaceful abode. It is a Japanese word, and it is to be used, I guess, when I use the word, it brings me back to my practice of compassion and of caring about people. It brings me back to my Buddhist practice.
So it's kind of a mantra? A mantra? Or?
I don't really know. I'm not well versed in what a mantra is. It is, it's a name that encapsulates my spiritual practice.
In certain traditions, they have, as you go through different stages in life, you change your name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you become someone different.
Yeah. I don't think I became someone different. I became someone who I am. And I dropped the pretense and the delusions and the false beliefs and the habits that I had gotten into, and I dropped those. And so it wasn't really, that was not really a change. It was a dropping away, and it was an uncovering of myself, of who I really am, deep down underneath all the garbage and the rubbish.
What would be the most profound difference that people that knew you back in the day, let's say you haven't met somebody for 10 years, 20 years, what would they say is different?
I have people that I haven't seen in a long time, and they tell me I'm more calm. I'm more centered. I know that in respect to other people, I have a deeper understanding and compassion toward their own suffering. But I think the biggest thing would be that I'm calm and peaceful.
When did Buddhism first get on your radar? When was it? When did you first?
It's been on my radar since college in the early 70s. I had a teacher, a philosophy teacher, that I was one of his students, and he was a Buddhist, and students would go and whisper to themselves, "He's a Buddhist." And I thought, well, that's really neat. That's better than being a lot of other things. And I always had a fascination. I used to sit yogic practice during college. And then I think it always was there. I really got interested in the late 70s. And I did transcendental meditation, which opened the path for me to the practice of Zen. So it really just opened the door for me to walk through. To me, Zen is a moment where I can sit very quietly, undisturbed, and listen to the sounds around me, listen to the room I am in. And also I sit and listen to the little voices that go through my head. And it gets me in a place where I'm a lot more centered and a lot more calm than I was. Those little voices, though, I won't make a little note of that. The voices that I hear is my mind talking, and it never shuts up. When I first started meditating, sitting Zazen, I thought you had to completely silence the mind. Well, the only time the mind really shuts up is when you're dead. And for me, I sit there and I watch the thoughts. But I don't, I like what one of the great teachers of Zen said about Zazen and the thoughts that you have. And he said, it was Suzuki Roshi. And he said, you have these thoughts, you can invite them in, but don't let them stay for tea. And so I have these thoughts and I watch these thoughts, and sometimes it's like an awareness. Oh, gee, I didn't know I was feeling that way about this. So it's someone once said it was an observing ego. where you kind of get in and observe your own thoughts.
Do you have, when you want to go to a place that's on a higher level, is there scripture that you think of? Is there a beautiful passage from literature that you know that you go over? Is it?
You can. There are not many rules to sitting zazen. There's not many rules to sitting meditating. I think that posture is a big part of it. Breath is a big part of it. But other than that, there's the quietness, and for me, there's not a lot of other rules.
It seems to me like this would be so beneficial to people that are stressed out, police officers, chaplains, people that are probably going to be uncomfortable at first. They're gonna feel a little peer pressure from their spouse and their kids, right? Dad's meditating. How do you get someone to overcome their reluctance to do meditation?
Let me address the first part of your question, and it was why or how it could help police departments and firemen and nurses and people under a lot of stress. And actually, that is being implemented around the country, from what I understand. Many departments have that as part of their training. I think that the more one does it, the greater the calling is to do it again and again and again. At least it is for me.
I would think most spouses who have a stressed out husband would be more than happy to say, "Oh my God, finally he's doing something."
Probably true.
Let's say that you have reached yourself a higher awareness than you did when you first began, obviously. Your focus is on kindness, bringing kindness and compassion into the world. Explain that. Explain why and how you do that.
I think it evolved as a part of my natural self. All my life, I have been concerned about the way people feel and the way people have to deal with life. I have a story. When I was a child, I was 6 years old. My father had died, and my mother and I walked to the store alone one day. And at the store, there was this individual there, and he was very poor, and he had most of the soles of his shoe missing. And he looked really like he was wearing rags. And I remember I began crying hysterically because I felt so sorry for this guy. And I felt some kind of pain at seeing him there. Throughout my life, I have always had a compassion for people who were not able to overcome their suffering, or people who were suffering. During the AIDS epidemic, during the early 80s, I was one of the founding members of AIDS Services of Austin, and we began taking care of our friends who had come down with HIV and AIDS. It was an awful time. I eventually became a buddy in a program there, which you worked one-on-one with a person with AIDS. During that time, I also worked with Barbara Davis of Austin, Texas, and we founded a house called Project Transitions and got that off the ground, and I was there for several years. So I've always had that inclination of wanting to help. Unfortunately, my best intentions were not always in the right place, and it took me a while, especially through Zen practice, to finally begin to find that right place where I could, in myself, help other people.
What do you mean by that? You're not there for completely noble reasons, or what are you saying?
For me, it was, let me preface this. For me, I was approaching helping people by trying to make things better, by trying to make a problem go away, by changing a certain amount of reality and helping people with their denial. I remember that I was sitting with one person who was dying, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I think I'm going to die." And my response was, "Oh, you're not going to die." And he died. And I look back on that, and I think it was my own uncomfortableness with his suffering that I didn't know how to handle. I had an instance this weekend where I was with a group of people, and someone began to lovingly cry among us. It was a good group of people, and she began to cry. And then someone, just as soon as she started, she said, "Don't cry." And I thought, why do you want to stop her from crying? Let it out, let it cry. So making that okay to have that experience. In my practice of Zen Buddhism, I follow someone called, it's a bodhisattva, and her name is Kuan Yi. And she is, I think a bodhisattva is very close. If someone is not a Zen Buddhist, I think I can explain it to, is similar to a saint in Christianity. And she is someone who hears the cries of the world of suffering. And I cultivate my practice with her, with the teachings around Kuan Yin.
Does everybody get to choose their own way that they are going to then, after having become some level a Buddhist, do they get to choose their own way of how to be in the world and what they are looking to make the world better? I mean, how do you get together and is there common projects, or is it all left to the individual? What do you want to do in the world? What change do you want to make in the world?
My whole thing is to help alleviate suffering in the world, to show kindness and compassion to people that I meet, even strangers. I don't think in Zen, I can't speak for Buddhist as a whole. I can speak from my own experience. And my experience has been that no one ever told me what to do or how to practice. That's not part of it. It's a really an understanding and a learning, a discovery of your own practice and your own self. There are guideposts and there are suggestions that are made that help you in your practice. And I don't like using the word enlightenment, but that is a word that comes up a lot among practitioners. And that's just a way of really seeing and understanding the world for what it is. We have this rakusu. This is called a rakusu that I'm wearing. And this is from the precepts that I received from my teacher, Jishan Tova Green. This represents a handing to me of certain signposts that I use to guide my practice. Very roughly, it can be considered similar to the 10 Commandments, but these are not to be used like that. They're more signposts and guides. And there are things like do not kill, don't be selfish, don't be greedy, try not to lie, among other precepts. And those are our really only guide that we have. There are no one going to sit and say, well, this is level 1, you have to study this, and this is level 2, and you have to study this. It wasn't that way for me, and I don't know of anyone that had that type of experience.
But what would you recommend to me if I wanted to just get it, to really get a better understanding of this historic worldwide movement?
Fiction or nonfiction?
Doesn't matter. Give me one of both.
I can't tell you what would be the book for you to read or anyone else to read. I can tell you the books that have influenced me. And the one that has had the most impact on my practice is a book called Living by Vow. And it's by Okamura. And it was published, I think, maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe more. I'm not really sure when it was published. The other one, which I found really insightful, was Ruth Ozeki's book, and it's called A Tale for the Time Being. And there's so many that, but those are two for me that I think were really good. The Tale for the Time Being is one of the great teachers of Zen, Dogen, has a dosal or a teaching about time and time being and the many aspects of time. And this is a tale for the time being. And Ruth Ozeki, she's a very good author.
I will look those up. Definitely.
But the first book I read, which influenced me, was the Zen of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I did in high school. Yes.
The Zen of was it Zen and Motorcycle? Zen of Motorcycle.
Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah,
that's what I remember. And it was always kind of a little status thing to have in high school because I don't know, you kind of felt like, I'm operating on a much higher lane here than everybody else. It was kind of a book that you didn't mind being seen with. It had a level of coolness about it, certainly.
Coolness, absolutely.
And I don't know that I got everything, but I certainly was jump in the deep end of.
If one is interested in pursuing a deeper understanding of Zen and Zazen, there are many locations around the country, Zen centers, and where Buddhists of like mind gather together and study and learn about the practice. I go back to Suzuki Roshi, Suzuki Roshi was a priest from Japan who came to the United States in the late 60s, early 70s. He was here. He founded the first Zen monastery outside of Asia at Tassajara Zen Mountain Monastery in the Ventana Wilderness. He also founded San Francisco Zen Center and Green Gulch Farms, which is an organic farm just north of San Francisco. And I forgot where I was going with that.
I think you wrote a book.
Oh, yes, he wrote a book. It's called Beginner Mind, Zen Mind. And that is the foundational book for my practice. Zen Mind, Beginner Mind, because we are all beginners. And what I was going to say was that Suzuki Roshi said that no matter how much practice one has or how long they have practiced, you're still a student of Zen. And I'm just another student of Zen.
Okay, sir, I appreciate you taking the time. And I think I have an even better understanding of it. And I know that I know that this is something that really is in need for police chaplains and police officers. Probably the most stressed out profession in the world, I think, given the last 2 years. And they really do need spiritual support. And so
Absolutely.
this could be the introduction to it. And if we're able to do that for some folks, then that would be terrific. And I appreciate your taking the time and explaining.
You're welcome.
Thank you.